Hey guys, Michael here, co-founder of Studicata, having worked with and helped over 1,000 students prepare for the bar exam. One of the most common questions that we get asked is, how do I memorize all the law necessary to pass the essay portion of the bar exam? This question makes a lot of sense, right? If you've signed up for your typical 8-week bar prep program from any of the big guys, any of the typical commercial programs, if you haven't already, you're probably going to receive something like this in the mail pretty soon, right? This is the amount of material that's going to be expected of you to get through in your 8-week program. In case you're curious, that's 24 pounds worth of paperback textbooks, thousands of pages of information, and on top of all of that, you're also going to have all those lectures you're either attending or watching online. It could be hundreds of hours there. Altogether, it's a ton of material to get through. Obviously, on top of that, you're going to be practicing, attending workshops. It's a ton to get through in an 8-week period. Leaves very little time to actually sit down and memorize rule statements, which we know is going to be a critical component of the essay portion of the bar exam. It's not like the multiple choice where you can kind of get through without necessarily memorizing rule statements. On the essay portion, you have to state rules. There's no way around it, have to have them memorized. So this creates a pretty big conundrum, which is why we get asked this question all the time. How do I memorize all the law necessary to pass the essay portion of the bar exam? And the first piece of advice I'd like to give here is, first of all, you have to dispel any notion that you're going to try to memorize everything. You can't. It's too much material. What you have to do is prioritize your memorization. You're going to have to come up with a way to memorize the most meaningful rules, the points that are going to yield you the most points on the bar exam first, and work your way down. And when you think about the actual numbers, let's take a step back. If you think about the actual numbers, at least on the uniform bar multi-state essay exam, over the last 20 years, according to our calculations, our research, we think about 500 different rules have been tested over the last 20 years. So over an 8-week bar prep program, 56 days, that's around 9 rule statements to memorize a day. It's pretty manageable. It's not as many rules as you might think when you're looking at that type of material, 1,000 pages. But really, it's only about 500 different rules. It's because the bar examiners are creatures of habit. In fact, over the last 5 or 6, I think 5 bar examinations, over the previous 5 bar exam administrations, at least for the multi-state essay exam, around 80% of the issues tested had been tested on prior exams. That means if you knew those 500 rules that had been tested over the last 20 years, you would have known around 80% of the material cold. And again, over 8 weeks, that's only about 9 rule statements a day. It's a very manageable amount to memorize. And when I say rules, I mean very specific rules. We're not counting big issues or topics as a single rule. Like negligence, I'm not counting as one rule. That's a topic. I'm counting negligence as all of the rules that encompass that area. You know, you're thinking duty, breach, causation, damages. All of those elements contain lots of separate rules. So it's not, when I'm saying rules, you do have to remember too, I'm talking very specific material. So it's not that much. 500 sounds maybe like a lot, but when you compare it to the thousands of pages of information that's being thrown at you, it's very manageable. And in fact, we've put all of those rules, all 500, or a little bit more than 500, that have been tested over the last 20 plus years in one outline that only takes up about 200 pages. And that's not front back, right? 200 pages of text covers the last 20 plus years of bar exam administrations, not thousands, not hundreds of hours of video lectures, 200 pages. And that's spaced out pretty, lots of margins, lots of spacing, big font. We're not cramming it all together, no tricks there. 200 legitimate pages covers everything that's been tested, virtually everything that's been tested over the last 20 plus years. So in terms of memorization, that's always my number one recommendation. Our attack outline is the most efficient way that you're going to be able to memorize all the law necessary to pass the essay portion of the bar exam. And if you want to get really technical, sure, knowing every single rule, having every rule memorized that's been tested over the last 20 years is extremely powerful, especially when you consider about 80% of the bar exam is typically repeated information, not new stuff. Very powerful to know those 500 rules. But what's even more powerful is even if you can't memorize 9 rule statements a day to memorize everything, right? You don't have that kind of time. We've prioritized that outline for you. So there's no guesswork. Every single rule statement is color coded with a little meter that tells you how much it's been tested. And it's all color coded and laid out very neatly, easy to read, easy to use. So what you should do if you want to be, the ultimate in efficiency when it comes to memorizing rules, you just go there and you go to the high. So let's say you're in civil procedure and you want to memorize rules in civil procedure. You open up to civil procedure in our attack outline, and you can go by priority. You can literally just scroll down, look at it, and see the meters that are color coded and start with those that are the highest priority and work down. So you memorize all the ones that are at that highest level of priority. You memorize those first. Once you have those down, then you go down in priority and down in priority and down until you get down to those rules that have only been tested once or twice over the last 20 years. But first you're focusing on those rules that have been tested 10, 11, 12 times, right? That come up 30, 35%. Then you work down to those rules that are only tested 2 to 5%. And by doing that, you're gonna memorize based on the prioritization of frequency. That is the absolute best approach when it comes to memorizing rule statements for the bar exam. There's no other way to do it in a traditional big bar prep program where you have thousands and thousands of pages of rules and law to try to get through and all those hours of video lecture. There's no real attack plan there for you. And if you decide, and again, I'll put a link for that, a sample maybe or something in the description here so you can take a look at that outline. If not, if you just want something else to start with that's even more basic than our attack outline, you can download our free top 120 list right now at zero cost, $0. It'll tell you the top 10 most tested rules from each subject. Another great way to get out there and memorize rules. If you need a prioritization in order, that's gonna tell you, start with these rules first in every subject and then work from there. All right, guys, don't want to drone on too long. I know that you're all really busy with bar prep, but as far as, how do I memorize all the law necessary to pass the essay portion of the bar exam? I would say, number 1, don't try to memorize everything. Number 2, come up with a prioritization, a way that you can attack the rules in a meaningful way. Okay, with that, I'll leave you guys to it. I wish you the absolute best of luck in your preparation for the bar exam, and I'll see you at our next video.